Well, welcome back to After 21, everybody. Hi, Rhea. Actually have a story to tell you, a bit of a story that I thought about you the other day, and I was like, this is story time for the podcast and for
Oh
our
my God.
conversation.
Okay.
So the other day I got invited by my neighbor who I hate throwing him under the bus, but he's 30 something years old. He's a married man and he works for a tech company. Not to stereotype him, but he's a great guy. And he was like, you know what? Come over. Like, just come over. We're having a quote unquote party with a bunch of people. So I was like, oh my God, I'm in my like PJs. I don't know how this is going to look. And he's like, yeah, just throw something on. You'll be good. And I walked into this, again, quote unquote party, and it was filled with fairy lights and like jazzy music in the background, some wine and chips and salsa and a bunch of like 30-year-olds. And then I was just thinking to myself, okay, this is me growing up. This is so different to what I would normally encounter. And then all of a sudden, I see a kid who's 3 years old bust open through the door because one of the guests is married and has a child. And I'm just saying, like, okay, I'm 24 years old. Let's get this party started. So yeah, that was my Friday evening. How are you
Oh
doing?
my God. That is so funny, first of all. I mean, I would say also kudos to them. Then if you're in your 30s having parties with wine and chips, I think that's a pretty good life considering
Cool,
you have
yeah.
kids. So at least we know we have things to look forward to.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I had a very chill Friday night. I don't know if I'm the only one who's been like this, but I feel like through the pandemic, plus just like after I started working, and I also work really weird hours for everyone who's listening.
You
So
work
I
very
end work,
hard.
well, I also end my like professional work day at 7 p.m. So I don't like to like overtly plan things on Friday nights. And I found myself at least like twice a week having, or twice a month, having Friday nights where I'm going to the gym, sitting in the sauna, going to the jacuzzi, coming back, and then I had a glass of wine, I had mac and cheese. Everyone in my house was actually gone. And then I FaceTimed one of my potential hopeful future roommates for LA, and we looked at houses until like 12 o'clock at night. But the best part, I will say, was that she had the exact same Friday night. Like, we were like, oh, Friday night, are you free? Oh, I'm free. And it was like, oh, I'm going to the gym. Can we push our time a little bit back? Dude, I'm at the gym right now for sure. Go shower, do it. Like, it was the exact same Friday night.
There would, I think, be a time where a past Rhea or past Apoorva would be living their best life in a different version, cut to
Yeah.
like, I think 2019. I don't think they would have ever thought that future Rhea and Apoorva would be sitting with a bunch of 30-year-olds or with their future roommates on a Friday night plotting their next plan of action. But I think this is like the best introduction for everybody on what we're actually going to talk about today, which is literally changes in your social dynamics, I guess, as you get older.
Yeah, just how social life changes. I've actually had like so many friends talk to me over the past few months being like, dude, I'm so lame right now, or I'm so sorry, I'm so lame, I'm so lame. And I'm always like, what do you mean you're so lame? And she's like, well, I used to go, like, I used to be so much more fun. I had more energy to go out and do things. And I was like, you still do things. You just don't get drunk and go out all the time, but you still do things.
But that's not cool anymore, apparently. You know what I mean? Like, I was I was actually I had this shower thought the other day. I was just like, we can't process alcohol anymore. Like, there used to be a time. Yeah, there literally used to be a time when like I used to think, God, he's so old or she's so old for coming to me and telling me that they can't process alcohol. Like, that's so lame. Look at me. And now I'm at 24, like literally can't even unable to process maybe more than like 2 beers. It's
I mean, I
ridiculous.
can still drink, I would say, but I don't like I've had situations where like I'll have a drink in my hand and I will look at my friend and be like, I physically cannot swallow this. Like, this is just not, like, it's there. I want to drink. I really do, but I just cannot drink.
Well, I think like that's, I don't know what it has to say about our social life, but it definitely has something to say about how like our whole definition of lifestyle changes as we get older, right? Like, I remember I was with a bunch of my friends the other day, last week, actually, last Friday, and we were all in our apartment complex playing squash, playing badminton, and it's like 8:30 p.m. on a Friday night, and none of us are dressed up. Everybody's in athleisure, sweating, and we're all just like looking at each other, and we're like, so what are your weekend plans? And the other person goes, taking my dog on a walk. Yeah, maybe come back at the same time tomorrow night to play badminton. And I was just thinking to myself, damn, there would have been a time I would have been disappointed if this is how my weekend was. But I'm weirdly okay with, doing what I'm doing now.
I will say that I go in phases. Like, I will be like, what the heck? I'm not doing anything this weekend. And then I will, like, I still have almost, I guess, like the imposter syndrome for it. But then at the same time, I also will be like, oh my God, I have too much going on. Like, I need more of a chill weekend. So I think it's a lot of kind of still getting used to and finding out your rhythm for yourself. Because for me, for example, like, I live in the suburbs right now. I'm 40 minutes away from downtown, and a few of my closest friends actually live downtown, which means that like going to see them on a Friday night or something is 40 minutes there, 40 minutes back. So I think if I was in a better physical location and proximity, I would maybe be a little bit more active, but I have to take that travel time into account.
I think the one thing that hit me when you said that is like, when we were younger, we would prioritize everything below our social life. We would always prioritize our friends, prioritize a drink or two or three, maybe like staying up awake all night. And somehow, as we've gotten older and our priorities have shifted, it almost feels like you said, I go through phases too, but I'm finding myself preferring to relax, finish my work, watch watch a reality TV show and then go to bed, because somehow that feels mentally much more easier, as opposed to waking up hungover and being or feeling guilty about the work that I have pending.
Yeah. I think it actually goes back to a lot of what we spoke about last month with mental health season, which is like giving yourself grace and understanding to see the changes that are happening, or the changes that you're making in your lifestyle for yourself. Like, I think this imposter syndrome, or these ups and downs, is because you have a view of what you think is supposed to be. And when you give yourself those things, like maybe a night in alone or whatever it is, that kicks in to be like, you're not supposed to be doing this, but you're allowed to give yourself grace in terms of like, no, I can do what I need to do.
Yeah. I love that you said that, actually, because there's this whole element of comparison in life, right? We bring it up in every possible episode that we can, and every possible theme, because that's a reality.
Every time we say comparison.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's so true though. Like, when you're laying in bed on a Friday night and you are watching everybody else planning or having a banger of a Friday night, you're just thinking to yourself like, oh my God, what the heck am I doing? Like, this is not how I envision my early 20s. That's not how the movies make it sound too. But then in reality, I think, what you said has so much weight to it, because it's just like everybody's definition of a social life evolves as you get older, and there's nothing much you can do.
Yeah. I actually, ironically, was having a conversation with one of my friends. She's also an entrepreneur. We have known each other, I think, ever since 2016. And we were talking on the phone about just how there's like, we go through this back and forth of figuring out our social versus like work life balance. And you also integrate like the balance of yourself. But half the times, like when you do look on things like social media and you're like, oh, I feel like I should be doing more socially.
Yeah.
And then we go and put ourselves in those situations. And then when we're in those situations, we're like, this is so stupid. I could have been doing so much
Something
more.
else. Yeah.
So it's also that like balance of really finding what it is so you don't have that remorse or guilt.
No, I completely agree. I think when I'm guilty of this too, where I look at other people and I'm just like, okay, I need to go out and I need to post a picture, post a story. And then I get there and I'm just like, this is so dumb. Like this is literally like far from what I'd envisioned for myself. But I think like one big thing of adulting that I've learned over the past couple of years, especially when you're finding yourself and finding your professional life and footing in this world, is to fucking own it. Like own that shit. Like if you're going to be in bed and make quality content about something because you're a content creator instead of going out, good for you. You know, you're being productive on a Saturday night as opposed to the rest. But I think kind of owning the fact that you are comfortable with what you're doing and you're making peace with how life is evolving is like a big part of social dynamics, according to me at least.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though, when you're saying like, oh, you go somewhere and you take a story. So I subconsciously noticed this trend with myself that I have stopped taking stories and social media coverage, like I would say 80% of the time when I'm out, but I think of it when I'm doing something in. So like if I would have gone out to dinner with a friend yesterday or something, I probably would have forgotten to take a story on a Friday night, but I was relaxed. I was sitting at home. And so I took a story of my Friday night in and I was still content with it though.
But I think that's like what is the right word? A psychological metamorphosis. I just made that up. But in terms of like you going out
with that word.
I think this whole like mental health month has made us a little more knowledgeable as human beings. But I think what you just said there is another shift in social dynamics, because we don't get to go out all that often now because, you know, life and other priorities. But when you do get to go out, I know a 21-year-old us would have taken a picture with each other and tagged each other and posted it, but we'd rather get there and have that rare occasion with a friend and spend it without the phone, as opposed to like Instagramming every single bit of it. So I think that is another big trend of evolution, I guess, in terms of social media.
For sure. I realize that I actually forget to take pictures with a lot of like close friends, unless I'm like top of mind, I have to do this. I don't really think of it. And oftentimes, like I will say, especially because my brain thinks a little bit more in that field, I'll be like, here's your checklist. Like I want to get this content and this content today. So it'll be like on top of my mind. But if I'm just going in to have fun and spend time with my friends, it does not even like cross
your mind. Yeah. You know, another thing that I think we should talk about, and this is like always swept under the rug, but it's the income part of knowing that like all your friends are making different amounts and having to plan social occasions. Because I don't know about you, but I thought I was broke in college, but I'm hella broke still. Like I still back out.
Not broke in college. I can say that. I think I think it's also a very different mindset when it's your own money. You see people go one of two which ways. You see people being like, oh, it's my own money, I can do whatever I want. Or you see people being a little bit more reserved.
Yeah.
But you just don't know how much anyone is making, because you don't know what anyone's like disposable income is. You don't know what their like spending brackets are. So I find it to be relatively difficult, because you're also always kind of like pulse checking, like, oh, let's go to dinner. Oh, what type of place do we want to go to dinner? Are we like looking for like a casual, like it's a necessary but weird conversation to kind of be like, how many dollar signs should the restaurant have?
Well, you know, I think money is such a big part of your social life. Like it's not even in your 20s, it's carries on in your 30s and 40s and 50s. Like as you get older, you know, you get more bills in your account and more expenses over what comes in, you know. So I even, in India, alcohol is really expensive because it's taxed so heavily. Any single time I'm going out with my friends and they say, okay, Apoorva, we're going out for drinks tomorrow night or day after, I legit don't go for dinners for like the next week or so because it's so expensive. And I always thought that, okay, I never got it, right? When I moved to India, I never got it because most people don't go out all that often, right? And I was just like, this is so lame. Like I used to go out in the US like twice a week or thrice a week, get a dinner, get Chipotle or something at least. People don't even spend money. And then I got here and I understood kind of how little you get in terms of money, and it makes sense why people don't go out all that much, and it makes sense why people are so calculative of every choice they make.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. I think one thing I do want to say, so this has been a tip personally for me that I started ever since I graduated and started an adult job, is I was pretty aware of what my financial situation was. And I also was aware of like certain maybe other friends were in other disciplines. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being open about where you stand.
Yeah.
So I have very clearly kind of been like, this is where I stand, you know it. I'm always down to do things. Sometimes there may be things that you want to do that I may not be able to do. I would always appreciate like the ask or the invite or whatever it is. But sometimes, like, it's just not in my capabilities. And I found that conversation I had with my friends go very far. Like they had the exact same understanding. Like half the time it really never was a point where I felt like we're going to things that were spending a little bit more. And I will say, I think in the group I was in, a lot of girls were in the similar situation and guys kind of had more disposable income. So you did see like a little bit of a trade-off, but it wasn't because of girl versus guys. It was just like the mutual understanding of like, we have this much, you have this much. If we want to do this, you can't come. So like, how does that kind of work type thing? But
that is a very great tip, honestly, because that is something, I think this is also cultural, because America or Western countries are a little more open about the fact that, your money, your financial stability, if you're not stable, you say it, and you really don't feel awkward about saying it, because that's how we were in college, right? We never thought twice about telling people, being like, I'm broke, I spent too much last week, I don't want to go out tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's something that is so different in India, because people don't really want to say too much because people want to get out there. People don't want to risk getting judged. But honestly, there's no harm in telling people that, hey, I'm a little tight on my budget for this week. I can't. If we can do something that's a little cheaper, or come over, let's cook dinner. Like, there's so many different ways that you can still incorporate socialization without expending money.
But it also goes the other way. Like, let's say you have a lot saved up and you want to treat yourself, or like maybe you are on the higher end of the income and you work really hard for it. There's nothing wrong with being like, hey, I want to treat myself to a nice experience. Does anyone want to come with me? Or things like planning it in advance, but just giving everyone that awareness. Like, I think even things like birthdays or this and that, like you can say, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm thinking of, and get a pulse. And I think once you open up that conversation, everybody is so much more open to like doing things or figuring out middle situations, whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great tip for anyone listening. And then the next piece of the puzzle, which I think is very relatable for Rhea and I, and all the single gals and the guys out there.
Oh my God.
How's that going for you, sweetheart?
I think if anything, this podcast has been us just blatantly putting our lives on like broadcast. But I mean,
sorry, mom and dad.
I am very open about my singleness. I am single. I'm very happy about the fact that I'm single. So like, I think everyone should own it. I think that if you are single and you don't want to be single, that's also perfectly fine to own, but you should be confident in whatever you want for yourself. But being single, I would say, is quite rare in this age group that we're in time.
Yeah, No, 100%. I think like, okay, until you're 25, 26, you find more of us in a crowd. But as you get older and you know, you want to be single, but you get out with your friends, everyone's in relationships, everyone's either getting married, everyone's either locking it down. Again, like nothing wrong with them, nothing wrong with you. It's just a little harder to have fun because you don't really want to be the fifth wheel or the seventh wheel or the ninth wheel. Because I've been there.
So, I mean, I have taken that out of my head. I'll be like, I'm fine being a wheel as long as you're fine with me being a wheel. Like, I will outwardly be like, cool, I am by myself. And it's like completely fine because I'm secure in it. But it's so interesting. I was just thinking about this with this topic. Like, I entered this year with like multiple single friends who are all in relationships now.
God. I don't know if that says a lot about us or them.
No, I think it's just like the age range that we're in. Like these past 2 or 3 weeks, I know so many people, 24, 25, maybe 26, but who have gotten engaged.
Yeah, I've been seeing that too on social media, and I'm just like,
yeah,
it's not the same anymore. And the next thing you know, you hunker down, you lock it down, and like a couple years down the line, we might be still single, and there's probably a random baby in the mix, you know, like
100%. I have a friend getting married in like 3-4 weeks. Like it's
you never know.
It's a very different field than what you're used to, I would say.
Yes.
You also have different types of relationships. Like people act like you have the relationship couple that is like a legit relationship couple and you always know that they're together. You have couples that like you could not know that they were together because they're just so like out there and social. You have couples who don't ever want to do anything because they have each other. Like it's like a new social setting with all these
varied degree. Like, or you go to a party with like a bunch of late 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, and they're, you know, I think I feel like that's a whole nother ball game once you get married and you have like a social life filled with married couples and like, you know, babies and people have dogs, etc. But like, I remember as a third person being in that social circle, it was not me that felt awkward. I think they were very excited to have someone younger kind of bring some spice of life into their circle. But I think that's just how social dynamics change. At least for now, I'm already seeing the fact that like there's so many couples around me and nobody can be my wingman or wingwoman anymore. And I'm just like, does anybody wants to see this girl get laid?
See, I think I see something opposite where a lot of the single girls will be like, so how's your dating life? And I'm like, whatever. Yeah. And they'll be like, can we see your dating apps? Can we go on a date with you? Can we watch you on the date? And I was like, to one of my friends, I was like, I literally am not on any dating apps right now. And she was like, can I log into yours? And I was like, I don't know the passwords. And she was like, can we just make you a new one and swipe? I was like, sure, go for it. Like, you want to do that and set me up with people? I have no problem, but I just don't feel like doing it.
I need to find these friends because my friends just want to play badminton or squash, and that's about the extent of what they want to do. But this is very interesting. Like, I think like as we get older, it might be even more interesting to see how the mix would be if we were to be in a relationship with someone in a social setting as we've gotten older, you know?
Yeah.
But I think like we've covered some major themes, right? Like we've covered definitions, we've covered money, we've covered relationships. There's one little thing that I think we also want to touch about, considering the fact that we're urban nomads. And it's the fact that, you know, sometimes it's not us. It's, I guess, sum total of our decisions to move to different places, and people are scattered across everywhere. And, you know, you might not be having that happening social life that other people have. That's not you. It's a result of consequences, I guess.
Yeah, I was actually just telling Apoorva, I was talking to my mom today and she was like, how come you're not hanging out with like all your friends? And I was like, literally all of my friends are out of town. Like I have 1 or 2 friends who are currently in town and we are doing something, but also like everybody has just been busy and not here. So I was like, I'm having the most social life I can for all the people who are here. And if I wanted to go out and push myself more, I could, but like I'm comfortable with the setting I have. Everyone is just out of town.
Yeah. And I also think like this whole era of mid 20s, early 20s, etc., as you grow old and people are following different passions, etc., you're always trying to plan a trip. You're always trying to catch up with your friends. You're always factoring finances, days off, vacations. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work out. Like it never works out when your friends, like Rhea, for one, is in Dallas. My best friend is in Ireland. I sit in India. Like, how on earth would anybody think that we would all meet unless one of us is getting married?
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, I think about that all the time too. My friends are so scattered, but seeing each friend is a financial liability.
Exactly. And I think that kind of sums up like the whole shift, because in college and in school, you're always together. You think like we're going to make plans after you graduate and, nothing's going to stop us. But honestly, there's, if you put your mind to it, you can make it work. But like really, realistically saying, like the dynamics automatically change when you have friends across the place, across the globe. Every time, I mean, you can't even get on call with your friend, more than like once a month, let alone seeing them in person.
I mean, one of my closest friends is 40 minutes away from me, downtown Dallas, and I wouldn't even I could have gone and seen her last night, but it would have been like a 40-minute drive there and back, which I was like, I just don't have the energy to do. So sometimes it's even when you live in the same city.
Yeah.
I'm actually very happy with the social setting I think I have in my life now, and I'm learning to figure out the right balance as I also figure out the rest of my life balance.
I'm so glad you bring that up, because I was just going to say the same thing in terms of even before I found the right balance, I went through a lull, like a period. I'm sure you went through this. I'm sure a lot of our friends who are listening to this episode have gone through this, when you jump out of that college setting and you're just like, wow, this is it. Like, this is life. Why isn't it as happening as it was in college, or as happening as the TV shows make it sound? But there's a period of that uncomfortability, but then when you get out of it and strike your balance, it's like, I guess, a jigsaw puzzle, for the lack of a better word. Well, you guys, this episode was supposed to be a little more lighter, a little more fun, a little more of a juicier episode to give you an insight into what social dynamics in your 20s look like. But to wrap this episode up, Rhea, do you want to hit the audience with our takeaways?
Yeah, for sure. So the first takeaway is that your social life does start to change once you are in your 20s and go throughout your 20s, but give yourself grace and accept the changes, because they're probably just going along with your general lifestyle changes as you figure out your life.
Number 2 is money does play a factor in determining social dynamics as you grow older, but our best tip to you is to be open about it. Talk to your friends, tell them if you have a tight budget, or tell them if you have a ballin' budget and you want to have a party or a celebration ahead of time so that everybody's on the same page and prepared for it.
Number 3, the relationship social setting is very different, but own whatever your relationship status is, be proud of it, and also just stay true to yourself as you navigate everyone being in a different place in their lives.
And lastly, the
4th takeaway is that things start to change in your 20s and are very heavily location-based sometimes. Your friends could be all over the world, all over the country, all over the state, all over the city. Understand that plays a role when it comes to your social life, and it doesn't dictate anything. Sometimes things are out of your control, so learn to accept it and figure out what's best for you.
Yeah. With that, guys, we just wrapped up another episode of After 21. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We will see you next Wednesday to get you through your hump day. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.